Ken, when and why did you become a stonemason?
I became a stonemason by accident, basically. I was working with my father on a family farm, and they suggested I should probably find a bit of extra work. So we were running a bit low on funds, and so I applied for a job as a labourer, which turned out to be in a stone company and making kitchens, and I was apparently really good at that, so it continued from there.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Liked it.
Liked it?
Liked it, yes.
Can you remember when you first started working with engineered stone?
We trialled it at the first company I was with, briefly around the year 2000, and they rejected it. And then I started working, I changed companies sort of early 2000s, and the company I was with there loved it, and they used it a lot in sort of commercial apartment buildings and stuff.
Why did your first company reject it? Not for safety, just for...
They considered it was rubbish.
Rubbish.
Rubbish. they were just natural stone and marble and granite, and they considered that how it should be, and yeah.
So when you were working with engineered stone, a lot of dust?
A lot of dust.
Many safety precautions?
Where I would know.
Did you know anything about the dangers?
Not like it is, no.
Right.
It was...
Did you become aware, like you were diagnosed in 2018, did you become aware at any time prior to that, there could be something here?
2019, there was a diagnosis, but also 2019, SafeWork did the mandatory screening of all the stonemasons in New South Wales.
Yeah. But before that, you thought it was...
Before that, it was... So most people considered it to be man-made, it's artificial, it's going to be mostly glue and rubbish. And turns out it was mostly silica and a little bit of glue and rubbish.
Did you use a mask?
Yeah, as much as possible. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
And tell me how you came to get diagnosed.
Through the mandatory screening.
Okay. And
So that was...
going into that, looking back now, do you think you had any symptoms prior to that?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Started with a cough. Basically starts with a persistent cough, and that was probably maybe 7 years before it started to show up a bit.
Right.
And then I was a smoker, but I'd cut down to about 4 cigarettes a day, and I still considered that's why I was completely unfit and wasn't sort of doing stuff. So I was like, I need to quit smoking and get fit. And every time I tried it was quite difficult. And then once I had the diagnosis, it made a lot more sense.
Right. So it was like it was more than a 4 cigarettes a day cough. Now, you can see that now.
Yeah.
But of course you tend to think, of course I'm still, because I'm still smoking.
That was my answer to it.
And did you have much of a physical life then? You know, I don't know, were you doing a lot of exercise, or your job was the exercise, or what?
Pretty much towards the end, so probably the last 3 or 4 years before I was diagnosed, that my only life was just about work. And then by the time I got home, I'd be that tired, I'd be asleep. I was waking up the next morning, ready to go back to work, and you feel like you haven't slept, you're just tired constantly.
And do you see that now as a symptom?
Yeah, it was definitely a symptom. It took me a couple of months after I stopped work. It was the first even couple of weeks after I stopped work, I was sleeping until nearly lunchtime the next day, and then I started to sort of feel almost human again and a bit more normal and could do stuff during the day, and yeah, it was quite helpful, that bit.
So, you know, if anyone's watching this who is sleeping a heck of a lot and has worked with engineered stone, what would your advice be?
Go get checked.
Yeah.
Even if you have no symptoms, I suggest getting checked, because it's something that if you get earlier, it's so much better.
So they checked you. How did you actually find out you had silicosis?
I think one of the doctors gave me a diagnosis, but then I had to see a GP, then see a specialist, then get tested for everything, and then that was sort of the official diagnosis.
How long did all that take?
About 2 months.
And how were you feeling in that period? Like anxious?
I had a lot happen in the very short period, but yeah, part of it was also they were undecided if I had lung cancer as well. So that was a very intense couple of months.
Yeah. How'd you get through it?
Stayed busy, really busy.
But were you still working?
No, I stopped working.
How long after the diagnosis did you
Well,
stop working?
the day I went for the screening. I was at work for another week after that, and then
How'd your employer react?
poorly.
Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah,
I mean, having said that, I said this to Andrew too. Remember, anything you say might be on this portal, so you say as much as you can.
had very little interest in agreeing to the bit where I can stop work, and no interest in anything that would help a person get compensation or feel a little secure about their income or anything like that. It was just
How long did you work for?
12 years.
Had a good relationship prior to that?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said something earlier. You said you got through that couple of months where there was a lot happening, in your words,
Yeah.
by staying busy, but you weren't working. It's fantastic advice to stay
Yeah.
busy, but how did you do that?
Well, where I was living at the time, the bushfires came through in December and burnt everything.
Wow.
And I was diagnosed in October, so we were basically preparing for that. I had my son helping me.
Where's that?
Mount Tamar,
Wow.
up in the Blue Mountains.
I guess that's one way of staying busy,
Yeah,
but a
it
pretty
helps.
stressful one.
It was intense.
Yeah.
So there was that much happening. I didn't have time to think about it too much, and as it always comes down to, there's no point worrying about it because you can't change it. You can do other stuff, so you worry about stuff you can change.
That's a great bit of advice too.
Yeah.
So when you got your diagnosis, officially, you got silicosis, you can't work in that industry anymore.
Yeah.
What prognosis, what did they say was going to happen? How severe was yours?
My official sort of worst case diagnosis was a 5-year lifespan. Apparently 5 to 10, depending whether I had double lung transplant. I'm just about at the end of the 5-year lifespan now, so I feel like I'm doing all right.
That's good.
So yeah.
Yeah. But that's pretty scary news, isn't it?
Yeah, it's it makes you rethink a lot of stuff.
Well, how many kids you got?
2.
2 kids. And how old were they 5 years ago? Got to do maths now.
My son was 17. He just finished high school at the same time I got diagnosed. Yeah. And my daughter would have been 12.
Yeah.
12.
So, yeah.
10. Yes.
10, okay.
10.
That's all right. So it's pretty confronting stuff,
Yes.
isn't it, when a doc says that? What, okay, so let's go through how, in various kind of different ways, it has affected your life. Firstly, work-wise, you left engineered stone. Did you work beyond that or not?
No. For me, it's given me an opportunity to work towards stuff I'd wanted to do before.
Like what?
Building race engines.
Building race engines?
Building race engines. Building
Yeah.
engines.
Yeah.
So in theory, I'm doing that with my son. It's something where there's not a lot of physical
Yep.
restrictions, and I can sort of do that at my own pace and not have to sort of stress and push myself too hard.
Yeah.
It's quite good.
But it's a good activity, something
Yeah.
you care about.
Yes, it's something we've sort of always been passionate for. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
So have you worked since 2019?
Officially, no. Not as in for somebody or anything.
Yeah.
No.
And have you got workers' comp from ICAP? No, sorry, not from ICAP, from, you've got workers' comp?
Yeah, I did a personal compensation claim,
Yep.
and that helped a lot.
Yeah.
It took about 2.5 years to go through, but it was held up due to COVID, because COVID kicked off at the beginning of 2020, pretty much. So,
Did it end up going to court? Or just settle beforehand?
I believe it settled.
Well, you'd remember going to court.
Yeah, I didn't have to go to
Yeah.
yeah.
And a lot of them settle pretty quickly
Yeah.
these days.
I think it's a lot simpler now than it was then even.
Yeah. Stressful, that?
Stressful, yes. Lots of paperwork.
How'd you deal with it?
Just got on with it. Got it done. It's the only thing to do.
Yeah.
get it done.
Have your physical symptoms got worse the last 5 years?
Yes,
How?
slightly. I get out of breath faster. I don't think I've jogged or run for at least 5 years, or even attempted it.
Yeah.
It's very hard to the hardest part with it is even now I'm supposed to lose weight to be considered for the lung transplant, which is quite difficult because you can't exercise enough to get your heart rate up to be losing weight.
Yeah, right.
It's a little challenging. You can walk or talk, but not both at the same time.
Yeah. And I mean, so it's affected your work, obviously. It's affected your lifestyle.
Yes.
No talking while you're walking
Yes.
and doing gentle things.
Yeah.
Financially, a lot of stress, but is that okay now?
Financially was a lot of stress. Yes, it's okay now. It's good, but it could easily have gone differently, which, yeah, I can understand why people worry about it, but
What advice have you got for people coming to terms with this emotionally?
that it's not an instant death sentence. You still have a life. You still have stuff you can do. And sitting in the corner and worrying about it is not going to do you any favours.
Easy to say, but how do you stop yourself doing that?
That I don't know. I think that's an individual thing. For me, it's easy enough. I focus on my kids. I focus on making sure that I want them to be set up comfortably before I pass or rebuild or whatever. And that's sort of my drive for it. Keeps me going.
Do you think that at some point you will have a lung transplant, or is it hard to say?
I'm assuming I will be. I saw the transplant clinic in June, I believe, and we're re-evaluating in December, and I'm hoping it can continue for as long as possible like that. But I expect at some point it will happen.
And why are you nervous about it? I mean, why you don't want to reach the stage where you need it?
I'd prefer not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it going to help a lot if you do get to that point and you have one?
I don't know. So their thing, as they said, was you have to make a decision if you consider you have, because the average survival rate on the lungs is apparently 7 years. So it was, if you consider you have 7 years left on your lungs, or whether you take the risk of 7 years on the transplanted lungs.
Right. Well, you need good advice,
Yeah.
How are you going to know?
That's it.
Do you have any advice about getting to the right doctor or doctors or nurses? How important is that, and how do you do it?
It definitely helps. I found, because I changed specialists, but only the specialist I had even suggested I go to the one that I've got now. So that was quite helpful, but they seem quite good now. I think it's got a lot more attention. There's a lot more of it, so they're a lot more switched on. I think to start with, it was still quite unknown. Like 2019, no one had really heard of it here much, and they weren't seeing it.
So are you kind of happy, or at least happy-ish, about where we've come from in the last 5 years, from when you were diagnosed to now? Has there been a lot of progress?
I think there's been a lot of like heaps. It's quite good. If it had happened earlier, in my opinion, it would have been fantastic. But it's definitely for the future. It's changed things.
What in terms of people knowing more, being more accepting?
They know more of it, and there's a lot more being done to prevent it. So much more stuff available. It changed things a lot very quickly. Dust, sort of the amount of dust you can make on a work site and things like that, because I've still got friends that are still in the industry, and it changed from basically being able to do whatever you want, and they no safety gear ever, and now they've got people watching them all the time. They have to have the safety gear. They can't be making dust, and it's heavily regulated now, which is, it should have been from the beginning. given how sort of toxic it is.
Where have you got support from?
Mainly my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you got a fair bit from yourself. Like you sound
Yeah,
pretty,
well, that's-
pretty resilient.
It's basically me, I think, in a lot of ways. I can't sit still. I can't dwell on it.
Yeah.
I just need to keep going.
Yeah. And what advice do you have for people who've just been diagnosed?
See a doctor, see a solicitor, get a good specialist, get a good solicitor. And it's not the end of your life. Find something you enjoy and do that.
Like building drag race engines.
Yeah, like playing with drag racing or
Yeah.
race engines and whatever. If you've wanted to do something, there's no point putting it off anymore.
And I guess when you're diagnosed with silicosis, there are things that you can't do, but there are still lots of things you can
Still
do.
lots of
And
things
so
you can.
work out what amongst them
Yeah,
are going to interest you
that's it.
and
Yeah.
enhance your life.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not putting words into your mouth.
Find things that you can do and find ways around it, and there's always a way if you try hard enough.
Yeah.
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 Find something interesting, it's much easier to find the way.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about the future?
Future is very. I try and. My theory is you got to live like you're going to live forever. And prepare to not, though.
Yeah.
So you do a bit of both. It's quite uncertain as far as I'm concerned at the moment. But I can't worry about it. I just got to see what happens and yeah, keep going. That's it, I think.